Good afternoon and welcome to a very special edition of Access to Democracy. In keeping with tradition in our 24 years on the air, we are pleased to bring you this special public service program. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Raker, the moderator and contributing host of the regular Access to Democracy program. This session is being recorded in the Eagan TV studios in the Thomson Reuters headquarters on Friday, November 17th, 2023 at 4 p.m. There is no public audience present in the studio. For the next 60 minutes, we will be engaging with the three candidates for Minnesota House District 52B. A special election has been set for December 5th to fill the seat recently vacated by the resignation of Representative Ruth Richardson. Our panel is the three announced candidates: BIANCA VIRNIG with the DFL Party, CYNTHIA LONNQUIST with the Republican Party, and Charles Kuchlencz with the Libertarian Party. The forum will be broadcast on Eagan TV on the following dates and times: November 21st at 8 p.m., November 26th at 6 p.m., and December 1st at 10 a.m. The recording of this forum will also be available on the website accesstodemocracy.com and on YouTube. Our timekeeper, who will ensure we adhere to the timing rules, is Alan Miller, the producer of Access to Democracy and the producer of this special program. The timekeeper will give a warning of 15 seconds remaining on each time block. If your response runs over, I'll call time and move on to the next candidate or to the next question. And here's the format. Each participant will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves and explain why they are a candidate and what they see as the major issues facing the next Minnesota legislature. There will be a series of identical questions presented to each participant, which they will each have 1 minute to answer. With each question, I'll rotate the order of who answers first. In the wrap-up, there will be a 2-minute per candidate conclusion period. As we're somewhat informal, candidates may remain seated for their responses, and I'll refer to the candidates with first names. So let's welcome the candidates and get started with their introductory statements. We'll begin with Cynthia, then Charlie, and then Bianca. Cynthia.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. My name is Cynthia Lonquist. I'm a former technology executive and business owner and now candidate for the Minnesota House of Representatives in the special election in 52B, serving Eagan, Mendota, and Mendota Heights. I consider it an incredible honor to have the opportunity to serve in the legislature, and I'm also very grateful that we live in a country where we can have a free exchange of ideas. And thank you, Bill, and Democracy Now! For giving us this platform and that opportunity. As a mother and a grandmother, I am running to make life more affordable for all Minnesotans. We live in one of the top 10 states that people are fleeing in this country because of the high taxation. I want to rein in government spending, and I want to advocate for implementing permanent tax rate reductions. This will give us more money, Minnesotans more money to be able to afford the necessities of life that we all need. I also will be an advocate for an education system that focuses on academics and involves the parents and puts the students first. We used to have an excellent education system here in the state. I think Garrison Keillor often said that Lake Wobegon was a place where the men are handsome, the women are strong, and the children are all above average. But sadly now, more than half of our kids are not even able to read or do math at grade level. So I want to return us to academic excellence. That being said, I think a couple of the top issues that are facing us in this upcoming legislature are just that: how to fix our tax structure so that we stop people from fleeing the state and to be able to return to excellence in academics. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Let's go to Charlie.
My name is Charlie Kuchlenz. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran who is committed to the principles of individual liberty, limited government, and personal responsibility. Throughout my career as a business intelligence architect, I've worked with corporate CEOs and executives to identify and analyze many key performance indicators that help influence their decisions. I've seen how innovation and creativity thrive when individuals are free to express themselves and follow their passions and are unburdened by unnecessary government regulations. As your representative, I will strive to bring this ethos to the realm of public policy. I strive to foster an environment where individuals are free to explore and pursue their dreams, unencumbered by excessive regulation. I'm an advocate for limited government because I believe that individuals, businesses, and our communities are best equipped to decide what is best for them. We need a government that acts as a facilitator and not a micromanager. We need to allow the genius of our people to flourish and without unnecessary constraints. Personal responsibility is a cornerstone of my philosophy. I trust that individuals, when given the freedom to make their own decisions, will take responsibility for the consequences of those decisions. It's time to shift our focus from a top-down approach to a bottom-up. Trusting the ingenuity of our citizens to address the challenges that we face. I'm not here just as a representative of a political ideology, but as someone who believes in the power of individual potential and the resilience of our communities.
Thank you, Charlie. Let's go to Bianca.
Hi, Bill and Alan. Thank you so much for having me and all those at Access to Democracy. My name is Bianca Virnig, and I am the DFL candidate. And I'm a mom of 3 children. 2 of them are at Blackhawk Middle School, and I have an elementary student at Deerwood Elementary. I'm on the PTO, and 2 years ago, I was elected to the school board in Rosemont, Apple Valley, Eagan. By day, I'm the Director of Health and Safety at an educational services cooperative, and I co-lead an Ed Policy Fellowship. I was the Regional COVID Coordinator helping schools through the pandemic, and for that work, I received the Public Health Achievement Award in Dakota County. I was also a Humphrey Policy Fellow last year, and I helped work to pass legislation that allowed schools to bill Medicaid for students with IEPs receiving social work services. So obviously for me, one of the biggest challenges is around fully funding education. And fully funding education can come in a variety of ways. I think we need to look at accessing untapped resources through Medicaid, making it easier to access funds. Something else is childcare. Childcare in this area is expensive, it's hard to find, it's keeping people from entering the workforce, and we all know that there are workforce challenges. And housing. You know, there's transitional housing, we have challenges around affordable housing. We have a thriving Somali population, and what does that look like? What does affordable housing or transitional housing in the diverse communities that we have? And then last but not least, something that I've heard that wasn't on my, last time I was on here, I have heard from many people about medical aid and dying, and that I have heard a lot while out door knocking, so kind of added that to the platform.
Thank you, Bianca. So now we'll go to the questions. And I will note that the candidates have not had prior knowledge of these questions. And just a reminder that the answers are limited to 1 minute for each of you. And I'll be rotating through the sequence so that each of you have an opportunity to be first and each has an opportunity to be last in the sequence. So let's get started with question number 1, and we'll go to Cynthia first, then to Bianca, and then Charlie. Here's the question. It takes some strong motivation for one to seek an elected public office. What or who inspired you to seek the seat in 52B, and what was that inspiration? Cynthia, start us off.
Thank you, Bill. The strong motivation that I have to seek election isn't just from one person, but probably from 5 grandsons that I am blessed with. And I want them to have opportunities here in Minnesota. I mentioned in my introduction that people and businesses are fleeing Minnesota. This has been my home. I'm born and raised here, and now to have grandsons here as well. When I see the jobs leaving and the people leaving, that I look down the line in the future, and that doesn't bode well for our future. So I want to stop that drain, and I want to roll out the red carpet for businesses to come to Minnesota. Thank you.
Bianca.
I think they say women need to be asked 7 times to do something. So when I ran for school board, somebody reached out to me and asked me to run, and the same thing happened this time. Multiple people reached out and said, have you thought about running for the House? Did you see Ruth had resigned? And I was like, no, I'm way too busy in school board. And they kind of said, well, you know, maybe you should think about this. Think about the work that you've been doing on the school board, and how can you take that to the next level? So for me, a lot of the inspiration has come from hearing from the community, the people who have supported me, my family, my neighbors. It's really bringing it back to 52B. So that's kind of it. You know, it was somebody asking and then taking that leap and getting involved and getting support from the community.
Charlie.
Yeah, one of my biggest motivations for entering this race is actually the last legislative session that we had. As the chair of the Libertarian Party last year for the state of Minnesota, we had, we held press conferences and we testified in front of the House and the Senate elections committees in regards to a filing that passed in the elections committees that pretty much relegated a major party from contention in 2024, which strikes me as probably one of the most egregious threats against democracy that I've seen. So that motivated me to get involved, to change the legislation that has happened, and to allow for more choice for Minnesotans to select from.
Let's go to the next question, and we'll start with Bianca, then Charlie, and then Cynthia in that order. An engaged and effective legislator is driven by a mission. What is your mission, your vision for the role of representative for this district?
Sure. I have spent 20 years, almost 20 years in public service. So my mission and vision is really how can I serve my community and do it in the best way possible. Really connecting with the people of in District 52B to be their voice. So for example, I have heard about the water issues over in Mendota and the police station in Mendota Heights having frogs. So how can I be a voice for the communities that I serve? That's really the core of who I am, whether it was at the state or the county or in my day job or now on the school board or as an elected official in the legislature.
And Charlie.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes, an engaged and effective legislator is driven by a mission.
Yeah.
What is your mission and your vision for the role of representative for District 52B?
Sure. My mission is to empower individuals to be able to make the best decisions for themselves. I think government is best representative at the local level. I don't think broad legislation that restricts our businesses and individual liberty is the best policy. My vision is neighbors getting to know each other again, not seeing each other as adversaries. And so I'm hoping to bridge that gap in the state legislature.
Cynthia.
Thank you, Bill. My mission is really to make Minnesota a better place for everyone, business and residents. It's to make Minnesota life more affordable for all Minnesotans through permanent tax rate reductions. And it's to bring excellence back into education where we have way over 50% of our children being able to read and do math at their grade level. So really, I have a vision for a Minnesota, as I mentioned, that rolls out the red carpet for excellence in business and in education.
Thank you. This next cycle on the question, we'll start with Charlie, then Cynthia, and then Bianca. And the question: the 2023 Minnesota legislature enacted a number of impactful bills. Considering the outcomes of the most recent legislative session, what, in your opinion, did they get right and what did they get wrong? Charlie?
Yeah, I think I've already mentioned what they got wrong. I believe the elections committee did not listen to anybody that testified in front of them who were staunch proponents of the legislation that was passed. And they basically based it on one Minnesota Reformer article, and I think that's just egregious. What they got right is passing the adult use cannabis bill. I don't like a lot of the things that are in it from the regulation standpoint, but what I do like is the ability for individuals to be able to grow, a couple of plants just like they're growing tomatoes. So I would say they got that somewhat right.
Cynthia?
Thank you. The last legislative session that we just finished really is a result of, or it's really a reflection of single-party rule down in St. Paul. We're living right now under a trifecta, a DFL trifecta, where the Democrats are in control of the House and the Senate and the governorship. And the result of that is evident in the legislative session, what came out of it. What they got wrong, where do I begin? But one of the most egregious things that came out of that, to my way of thinking, is that it is now legal for a child born alive with a disability or having survived an abortion to be left to die without medical treatment. A couple of the things that they got right are increased penalties on carjacking and transparency in healthcare pricing.
And Bianca?
Yeah, like Charlie, I think the cannabis bill was a good move, and but for me, it really comes down to, I think they made some really great changes and implementations in funding education, and specifically around the READ Act to address some of the literacy challenges that schools are facing. What I've said before, what I think they got wrong is the implementation portion of it. So they've passed things, but it's hard to implement right away, and not having that system or infrastructure in place. Schools are just itching to get at that. What do you want from us? How do we do this? How do we access the grant funding? How do we access the resources that came out of this legislative session? So I would love to see that speed up a bit and be more readily available for schools. Education, fully funding education, cannabis, the READ Act. I like it all.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Cynthia, then Bianca and Charlie. And here's the question. What is your radar telling you about what voters want or expect from their representative? Cynthia.
Thank you, Bill. Well, as I've had a little more time than some to be knocking on doors and meeting with the voters, it's really given me kind of a window into what they are thinking. And I really keep hearing over and over again that they want politicians, when they run for office and make certain promises, to follow through on those promises. For example, the $19.6 billion surplus that we had, the Democrats ran on giving back in the neighborhood of a $2,000 rebate check to individuals, and ended up throwing us a bone of $264. And I have people that I'm talking to on both sides of the aisle at the door that are very upset about that. So they want accountability, and that's what really this election might come down to, is accountability on that and many other issues. Thank you.
And Bianca.
Yeah, so I've got to do a lot of door knocking here recently, and I think some of the things that they really want or expect from their representative is somebody who's showing up, who's there, who's listening, who's helping solve the problems, who's part of the process, and who understands the various challenges facing the three kind of, Mendota Heights, and Eagan. They each have different needs, wants. They're at different phases of growth and development. So to me, I think what I understand from door knocking is that they want somebody who's there, who's part of it, who's seen, who's engaged.
Thank you. Next question.
I didn't get to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Charlie. You're right.
That's all right. I'm interrupting you.
Didn't mean to preempt you, but please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think that voters want somebody who's compassionate, who's caring, and who's competent. And I think that, as we talk to people across our district, one of the biggest things that has come to my attention is people are upset with the division in the legislature right now. It seems like nothing's moving forward in collaboration. It seems like there's one side is taking control of everything, and I think people are really starting to get disaffected with that. As you see in the low turnouts, people don't think their vote matters, and I think providing somebody that is going to represent them in the state legislature will help with the turnout and help people feel seen.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we can go to the next question. We'll start with Bianca and then Charlie and Cynthia. Recent court rulings and legislative actions in some states have changed the landscape for reproductive rights and women's health. What is your position on the pro-choice versus pro-life issue? Bianca.
Well, we asked this last time too. Yep, I am very pro-choice. As a mother of 3 children, and I had 4 pregnancies, and my second pregnancy involved a massive tumor, a fast-growing tumor. That had to be one of the options for us when we were discussing with our provider as to how we would move forward. I also had a DNC with the miscarriage that we had, and it's important that women, families, people have access to the reproductive care that they need to make healthy decisions when they need them. So, pro-choice isn't just about abortion, it's about family planning, when you want to do that, how you want to do that. It's getting pregnant, it's access to care, access to doctors. It's a full spectrum answer, not just straight abortion.
And Charlie.
Yeah, I've seen pro-choice and pro-life as abortion. Sorry, just the way I see it. And I think it's probably one of the most divisive topics that our country is facing, not just our state. And I think there's valid arguments on either side, but what people are really looking for is some collaboration from both sides. So I think there is room to advocate for maybe, let's start to regulate what late-term abortion looks like, and at least allow for the development of life in those late terms. Now, I would say I would probably, make some exceptions for the life of the mother is in danger. So I think there is some room to work in the legislature across both aisles.
Okay. And Cynthia?
Thank you very much for the question. 70% of Americans believe that there should be restrictions on late-term abortion. That is a child, that is a human being. And again, the last legislative session that we have just come out of now makes it legal for a child born alive to be left to die without medical care. The Democrat Party and my opponent call it health care. I call it child sacrifice. I think we need to revisit that issue. And speaking of choice, a choice was removed from women who want to choose life for their baby, but the legislative session and the single-party rule removed funding from the pregnancy centers that would provide tangible resources for women who want to bring their baby to life. And that is not offering them a choice at all. Thank you.
All right, we go to our next question. We'll start with Charlie, then Cynthia and Bianca. In addition to the seat in the legislature, representatives are asked to serve in other roles. If elected to the 52B seat, what committees do you expect to sit on and why?
Thank you very much for that question. I would love to sit on the House Elections Committee. Like I said, there's so many things that passed, and we've basically taken away the choice for Minnesotans to have representatives that are outside of major party status. I'm not sure if many people even understand how major and minor parties work in the state of Minnesota. But it's a trek to even get on the ballot if you're not one of the legacy parties. And I think don't get me wrong, both parties, the chair of both parties wrote letters in favor of removing a major party from the state of Minnesota.
Cynthia?
Thank you. I would really like to serve on the Education Committee because I believe that's an area that should be bipartisan, and I know that people on both sides of the aisle want to come together to improve academic outcomes for our kids. I applaud and support the wonderful teachers out there. So many of them, I mean, they just give so much of themselves. They got into the field out of love for kids, and they should be applauded for that and rewarded. And I also believe very strongly that the parents have a right, and they know their kids best, to determine the best environment for their child to learn in. And I believe that's an issue we can all come together on as well. Thank you.
And Bianca?
Yeah, of course. Ed policy, ed finance, okay. That gets me excited, right? I mean, this legislative session has to address compensatory aid for schools. So ed policy, ed finance, either one, both. I'm ambitious. I'll take 4 committees. The labor and industry, also another committee that I think would be great to be part of. I worked for Minnesota OSHA for a long time. I'm familiar with the apprenticeship programs. I'm familiar with the needs of the industry. We need boiler professionals. We need electricians, elevator inspectors. So I would love labor and industry. And then finally, transportation. Right now we don't have representation from Dakota County on transportation. It's not something that, I'm as knowledgeable about as, say, education, but I would love to dig in and learn more and be on that committee.
Thank you. Our next question, starting with Cynthia, then Bianca and Charlie. Taxing and spending are always issues that elected officials have to deal with. It's been reported that our state has or is projecting a revenue surplus of more than $2 billion. How would you propose prioritizing the use of those surplus funds?
Thank you very much. Those surplus funds should be returned to the people. It's not a surplus, it's over-taxation. The legislative session that we just came out of, where they spent the entire $19.6 billion quote-unquote surplus, and then raised our taxes beyond that. So they grew the state of Minnesota government from a bloated $59 billion up to, I believe it's 72. So the government is way too large, and we are being overtaxed. And how we know that is we are not competitive with our neighboring states, and we're not competitive with most of the rest of the United States. And that's why people are fleeing Minnesota. So that money needs to be returned, and we need permanent tax rate reduction.
And Bianca?
Yeah, so the $2 billion projected surplus, I think some of it is making sure that we understand what is funded and not funded, And then we really could use an infusion to childcare. Childcare providers, the average cost is over $1,300 a month for childcare. That's more than many mortgages. It's a very low-paying, low-wage job. They need to have a pathway to benefits and pensions and health care. So I think it would be good if some of that funding could be infused to support the childcare system in our state.
Charlie?
Yeah, I actually agree with Cynthia. I think it needs to be returned. I don't know if you noticed, but your prices have gone up for everything. It's getting harder to live in the state of Minnesota. It's getting tougher to survive. We have a surplus of money at the government level. If that doesn't raise an alarm for you, I don't know what will. Government is not there to provide for us. Government is there to protect us. We need to be able to provide for ourselves. So I'd like to create a community that helps itself, and giving that surplus back to the individuals that are going to use it and grow the economy as individuals making choices for themselves is the way to go. That's how we prosper.
Thank you. Next question will go with Bianca, Charlie, and Cynthia. Many public schools and public libraries are dealing with what has been framed as First Amendment rights issues. What is your position on banning books?
Well, I've got a t-shirt that says I'm with the band. So I have multiple times stood in protest of banning books. I don't support banning books. I think both the library system and the educational system have processes in place to determine what should or should not be on their shelves. I think parents can help guide their children into choosing and selecting the books appropriate for them, but I do not support banning books.
Charlie?
Yeah, I absolutely do not support banning books. I think information is free for people to choose what they want to read and what information they ingest. I also would not support a state legislation that either stopped school districts from including books or the opposite. I think the people that live in the districts that run for school boards or work within the library system would be best positioned to determine what information is available to their communities. So I think as the further we get from a state legislation, the better. Bring it back down to a local level and let people run for school board and determine what they want their kids to be able to view.
Thank you. And Cynthia?
Thank you. As far as banning books, adults can read whatever they want and be exposed to whatever they want, but I believe it is our role as a society and parents to protect children from content that is not appropriate for them, be it violence or sexuality. Again, adults can read whatever they want, but I do believe that children need to be protected.
Thank you. Next question, Charlie, Cynthia, and Bianca. Can you give us some examples of your accomplishments to date on behalf of the constituents in 52B?
Accomplishments to date. I work in the private sector. I guess one of the biggest accomplishments would be reaching out to my neighbors and creating relationships with them. That's probably the biggest thing in the way I see our community growing together, getting to know the kids in your community and not seeing your neighbors as an adversary, but more open communication, having civil discourse.
And Cynthia?
Thank you. Like Charlie, I have spent my career in the private sector. I worked in technology sales all of my career and owned my own business. We served my community as well as a larger area than that. But I believe that my highest calling in life has been raising my daughter to be a really wonderful person, a productive member of society, and a fantastic mom to my grandkids.
And Bianca.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so serving on the school board has been really impactful. And when I talk about fully funding education, that's been going on for a long time. So I've helped pass levies, a couple of levies with the school district. I'm on the PTO. We raise funding for the school district. I stood up the largest youth COVID vaccine clinic in Dakota County once the vaccine was available. We've since vaccinated thousands of people, many in this district. Also, I did a mask drive when the pandemic first happened. I helped both school districts navigate COVID, navigate the learning models, the safe learning plan. I've helped with getting school-based health centers, as well as supporting the school nurses and mental health providers. We've also worked on getting sustainability added to the strategic plan in 196. And finally, I was the celebrity duck in the YMCA fundraiser. So, you know, I've got to do a lot of fun things.
Okay, here's the question, and we'll start with Cynthia, and then Bianca and Charlie. Adults over the age of 65 now outnumber school children in Minnesota. The Governor's Council on an Age-Friendly Minnesota recently submitted recommendations to ensure Minnesota is ready for that demographic shift. What steps will you take to ensure all Minnesotans can live independently in communities with access to affordable housing, adequate transportation options, and high-speed internet? Cynthia.
Thank you. So, just a second, high-speed internet, transportation, and what was the third thing you said? Healthcare?
Affordable housing.
Or housing, affordable housing. Okay, thank you. The one thing that I want to make sure is that we don't drive away our retirees, which is what's happening now. All of us know people that are in that age category that are going to retire in places where the tax structure is better. And so many of them don't want to leave Minnesota. They go for that magical 181 days, and then they come back here. But they have to stay away 181 days in order to claim residency somewhere else, so that the state of Minnesota doesn't take so much of what they have worked for. I really believe that we need to stop driving business away, and that will ensure that we have competitive health care and housing and transportation. Thank you.
And Bianca?
Well, first, I'd love to read the report, so I think that would be essential to see kind of what was outlined, and then connect with the various city leaders as well as the legislative partners, collaborators, right? You need to build coalitions, but also, what are the action steps that we can, as legislators, help to make Minnesota age-friendly? Some of those things are around paratransit, having more multifamily housing. I know people right now who are really struggling to get PCAs so they can stay in their home. So how can we address the workforce shortage? And as you look at the pool of people, right, we aren't having as many children as we were before, and the immigration is down. We still need to fill those workforce roles. So where are those people going to come from? Probably the education sector into the healthcare sector. How can we help along the way? So it would start by reading the report.
And Charlie?
Yeah, I'd like to read the report as well. But there's a couple of things. I would look to remove regulatory barriers, identify and eliminate some obstacles that restrict the supply of affordable housing. I would like to encourage competition within the housing market and transportation. We've had a couple of transportation boondoggles in the Southwest light rail. We're encompassing $3 billion on that. I think it was originally estimated at about $800 million. So all of this money that we're spending and the Met Council has approved is money that they didn't have. And so I think if we were able to provide some analysis before making those decisions, that money is better spent in different areas.
Next question will go Bianca, Charlie, and Cynthia. What is the most important attribute of an ethical and effective elected official?
I think maybe the most important attribute of an ethical, and do you say ethical and elected official?
Ethical and, yes,
Yeah.
effective.
Effective, sorry, is somebody who can work in the middle. And I'm really good at working in the squishy middle, right? You know, a lot of times, I think we're hearing it here, people feel, you know, we're out here and we're out here, and to move things ahead, you've got to be able to work in that squishy middle. How can you hear different voices, different perspectives, and do it in a positive way, in a way that really is centered on your values, and then people feel heard, you know, or you at least understand how the decision was made. Maybe you don't agree, or the vote didn't go the way you wanted it to, but you understood why that decision was made. So coming to the middle, working in that squishy middle, and moving things forward.
Charlie?
Yeah, in a word, empathy. I think we've lost that in our current community. I think understanding that people's perspectives are driven from the life that they've lived so far. I think everybody has a different perspective, and we need to be able to listen to understand what people are saying instead of listening to respond with some form of hate or you know, degrading them for what they've witnessed throughout their life. So I think having more empathy towards people and creating those relationships, and we can always agree to disagree. We don't always have to be right. So I think just understanding where people are coming from and being empathetic to, you know, what they've gone through and how they form their opinions.
Cynthia?
Thank you, Bill. I think first and foremost is really finding someone who cares, who's not in it for themselves. And for us, that means voting for candidates that are rooted in a value system that you agree with. In order to be effective, I believe it is really to find that common ground that we can agree on and move forward.
The next round of questions will be Charlie first, and Cynthia and Bianca. Reports of armed violence and mass shootings continue to escalate in our society. What is your position on enacting and enforcing more rigorous and more effective regulation of firearms?
Thank you for that question. I am pro Second Amendment. I believe that the reason that our founders created this amendment was for us as individuals to be able to protect ourselves from the tyranny of the government. I fully support people protecting themselves, and I don't think you would see a libertarian running around with a gun and using it behaving badly. I think we check ourselves. So I think what we need to do as a community is engage with people and create that empathy again. I keep bringing that word up, but it really comes down to relationships within our communities to be able to identify when people are struggling.
Cynthia?
Thank you. I also am very supportive of the Second Amendment. That is an integral right that we have as Americans, as Charlie mentioned, to protect us from tyranny. And it also is there so that we can protect ourselves and our families. And that's very, very important. I would point to some areas in the country that have the strictest gun legislation out there, such as Chicago, and they have the highest rates of violence. So it does not work to enact stricter gun violence that the law-abiding citizens have to abide by, but the criminals don't care what you do for the law. They're going to do whatever they want. So it does not work. We just really need to, have the respect of the firearms, and as Charlie mentioned, to have that relationship with those around us, and to be able to know if someone is going off in a different direction. Thank you.
Bianca?
So I am a Moms Demand Action gun sense candidate and an avid hunter and a gun owner. And I actually believe we should have more gun legislation. I think we should ban assault weapons. I mean, there's a lot of things around loopholes at gun shows, online, and we need to really look at school threat assessments, funding mental health services. If you think about mass school shootings as death by suicide or death by cop, you know, people don't go into a school shooting thinking they're going to come out. So we need to address the mental health of our students, of our community. We also need to have more services for victims of gun violence. So I do think we need more gun legislation. And it is one thing that on the school board parents write me about. They are very concerned.
And this is a follow-up question, or it's related to the question you just responded to. We'll start with Cynthia, then Bianca and Charlie. What are some of the major challenges around public safety in Minnesota that legislators should address?
I'm first?
You're first,
Okay,
Cynthia.
thank you. Some of the major policies that legislators should address with regard to law enforcement,
Public safety.
or public safety.
A more general topic.
Okay, more general public safety. Well, one thing is making sure that we are very supportive of our law enforcement community. They've been demonized to a degree, and they are in this really to support and protect us, and I'm very grateful for them, and so we need to surround them with the resources that they need. Something else regarding public safety is really the mental health crisis. And I am all in favor of making sure that we have tangible resources for anyone who needs it, who is suffering a mental health crisis. Thank you.
Bianca.
Well, looking really hyper-local, Mendota Heights needs a new police station. It's got frogs in it, okay? They really need support there. But also, I mean, gun legislation, right? We just talked about it. I support that. And mental health supports and more co-responder programs, I think would be really helpful. Yeah.
And Charlie.
Yeah, I think, you know, when it really comes down to it, I agree with you. It's the mental health problem that we have in our community. And I think a lot of what it is driving that is people are seeing the inability to progress right now. Inflation has gone through the roof. Prices are very demanding. People are searching for work, and I think they're getting to a point where they just don't know what to do. And so I think like in my opening, I said we need a bottom-up approach. We need to foster an environment where our community is helping each other out. Instead, what we're getting now is the polarization of one party versus the other, or this president versus that president, and then we don't come together and we don't understand where people are coming from. And so I think being empathetic, being neighborly, not seeing each other as adversaries, and will definitely help with the mental health issue.
The next question round is Bianca first, Charlie, and then Cynthia. It's been noted that the U.S. has the highest healthcare cost of any developed country. What is your position on more affordable health care for all Minnesotans?
Sure. So, well, I think we should be negotiating more on our drug prices. That would be great. I do think we need to support staff and patient safety as far as costs. That, you know, all those injuries cost money. And I think there are a lot of ways that we can address healthcare for all in unique ways. So meeting people where they're at. For example, being able to bill Medicaid for services that are provided in the school would be helpful. Having school-based health centers would make a difference. It would help bring some of those costs down. I think having mobile clinics and having pathways programs so we aren't paying overtime, but we have A full workforce would be helpful to bring costs down. I think there's a lot of things that we can do. We just need to think more creatively and braid resources.
And Charlie.
Yeah, I think excessive government regulation contributes to the rising healthcare costs. I will advocate for reducing the bureaucracies and the bureaucratic hurdles and allow for more competition within our healthcare environment. I think allowing for more competition helps us innovate, helps us implement new technologies and explore new standards of care. And I would support, more reliance on charitable organizations and community-based initiatives.
Cynthia.
Thank you. I would like to see us innovate a little bit more than we have been and look at things a little differently with regard to healthcare. There are other countries that have what are available here in the U.S. as prescription drugs that are available in other countries in the drugstore. And one example of that here in our country might be, I want to say it was maybe 15 years ago, Claritin at one time was you had to see a doctor and get a prescription for that. But that eventually made it down into where, if it's not a dangerous or controlled substance, that people can get that and save money by just a trip to the drugstore to get many of them. And let's see, maybe there are some others that we can do that with, some very common things that are non-addictive and that type of thing. I also believe that if we can support more of the holistic type of medicine community, that would help as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're coming to the time where we need to go to the wrap-up session, so we have 2 minutes for each of you to give your concluding comments, and we'll start with let's see, who was up here? Charlie, I think, is the first one.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present my ideas in this platform. I want to thank my opponents for engaging in a constructive conversation today. As you can see, my philosophy relies on the ability of individuals to make the best decisions for themselves and their families. My vision for a strong community that seeks to incorporate everyone and lift each other up in times of desperation is not far-fetched. Minnesotans are durable. Our state maintains a rich history of hardworking, innovative individuals who have thrived when given the freedom to pursue their aspirations. I firmly believe in fostering an environment where personal liberties are protected, allowing Minnesotans to unleash their full potential. Empowering individuals to make choices that align with their values is the core of my vision for our state. A strong community is built on the foundation of individual empowerment, recognizing that each person knows their need and aspirations better than any centralized authority. Together, we can forge a path that celebrates diversity, encourages entrepreneurship, and given the freedom to make their own choices, ignites a spark in every Minnesotan to stand up, participate, and shape a future where liberty isn't just a concept, but a living, thriving reality. Let us embrace the principles that have made Minnesota great: self-reliance, innovation, and the unwavering spirit of individual freedom. If anything I've said tonight resonates with you, feel free to contact me at kuchlenzformn.com. That's KUCHLENZFORMN.com. Thank you.
Cynthia.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you, Charlie and Bianca, for the robust discussion here today. So, as I mentioned, I am someone who has lived in Minnesota my entire life. I'm part of a large extended family. I mentioned that I have 5 grandsons and also 1 wonderful granddaughter, and all the way up to my 91-year-old mother, as well as many siblings and nieces and nephews. I'm very invested in the community. I want to make Minnesota a better place for everyone. I care very much about this community. this race, this election is not about me. It's not even about 52B. It's really about the future generation of Minnesotans, and that's what I'm in it for. I really believe I am a person who has worked in the private sector my entire life, so I do not bring to the table a government solution for everything. I believe in a more limited government, one that unleashes the families to make the right choices for the education of their children, one that allows Minnesotans to keep more of their money and invest in the community. This is how we will all be lifted up. I want to roll out the red carpet for businesses to come from all over the country, and I want to roll out the red carpet for families and individuals to innovate in education as well. Reach out to me on CynthiaForMinnesotaHouse.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I thank you very much.
Bianca.
Yeah, Bill and Alan, and again, everyone at Access to Democracy, thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Cynthia and Charlie, for being part of the forum today. You know, I'm a service-driven leader, right? And my commitment to the community is pretty evident, being involved with the PTO and the school board. And this is really about bringing it back to the people of Eagan, Mendota, and Mendota Heights, centering the work on this community and how it can impact the state of Minnesota. I've got a really passionate, engaged, amazing team out, and I honestly want to thank Cynthia Calais and Jay Miller and Chris Whitfield, because working with them, you know, in the primary meant you had to be out pounding the pavement, really hearing from people, really understanding the needs of this community. And so I feel like I'm in a really good place to advocate for the people of 52B. You know, I've proven I can win here, not only when I beat 3 Moms for Liberty candidates on the school board, but now in the primary. So I'm ready. We're ready to go. If you want to door knock, we're going to be doing it this weekend. So please join us. If you want to learn more, go to BIANCAVIRNIG.com. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well, a special thank you to the candidates for their interest in being a public servant and for your time and participation in the forum. It's been an engaging discussion that we've had. Thanks again to our producer and timekeeper, Alan Miller. A special thanks to the management and staff of Eagan TV for their support in making this production possible. We appreciate the opportunity to bring this special edition of Access to Democracy to you. Thank you for watching, and remember to vote in the special election for District 52B on December 5th.